Hi everyone. When the power goes out, you find out really fast which things in your house are nice to have and which things you absolutely do not want to live without. Today I'm talking about this DuroMax generator, and more specifically, what it has been like using it as a backup power option for home outages. This is not one of those tiny portable generators you casually toss in the corner of the garage. This thing is big, heavy, loud enough to remind you it's working, and very clearly built for people who want serious backup power when the grid decides to disappear. My main reason for getting it was simple. I wanted something that could handle more than just a refrigerator and a few lights. I had used smaller generators before, and while they helped, they always required a lot of compromise. You're constantly deciding what to unplug, what to run, and what has to wait. With this one, the goal was to get closer to a whole house backup setup without going all the way into the cost of a permanent standby generator. The first thing that stood out to me was the size and weight. This generator is not light. You definitely want another person around when setting it up, especially when you're installing the wheels and handles. At one point, you have to tip or flip the unit to get the shipping brace off and put the wheels on. And that's not something I'd recommend doing alone unless you're really comfortable handling a heavy machine. Visually, it has that large, open-frame generator look. It's not trying to be compact or decorative. It looks like equipment. The frame feels solid, the paint looks thick, and the wide, solid rubber tires are a nice touch, especially if you need to roll it across uneven ground, gravel, or sandy areas. I also appreciated that it came with readable printed manuals, not just some tiny, hard-to-read download. There was a user manual and a service manual, plus a selection of plugs and a small toolkit for basic assembly. Now, the included tools are helpful, but I'll be honest, if you already have a decent socket set or impact driver, use your own tools. It will save time. Also, be aware that it does not come with oil, so don't unbox it during an outage and expect to fire it up immediately unless you already have oil ready. I used 10 watts 30 for the break-in, and the prep process was pretty straightforward. Assemble the wheels and handles, connect the battery, fill it with oil, and then test it. The electric start is one of my favorite parts. Once the battery was connected and everything was ready, I hit the start button and it fired up without drama. There is also a pull start available if needed, which is reassuring, but for normal use, the push-button start makes the whole thing feel much easier to deal with during a stressful outage. I've mainly run it on propane, and that's honestly how I prefer to use it. Propane stores better, keeps things cleaner, and I like not having to worry as much about old gasoline sitting around. On propane, it starts strong most of the time and runs smoothly. If it has been sitting for a while, it may take a couple tries once in a while, and I have had it backfire on startup occasionally, but it has not felt like a major problem. Once it's running, it settles in and does its job. One detail I didn't expect was the electric choke. You set it to choke before starting, and once the generator is running, it automatically moves over to run. It's a small thing, but it makes startup feel more polished than I expected from a big open-frame generator. In actual outage use, this generator has been the difference between camping inside the house and living with a pretty normal level of comfort. I've used it to keep essential circuits running, including refrigerators, freezers, lights, internet equipment, and well pumps. It has also handled larger household loads like central air conditioning, a water heater, and an electric stove, although I'm careful about not running every high-demand appliance at the same time. That's really the key with a generator like this. It can do a lot, but you still need to manage your loads intelligently. I don't treat it like unlimited power. I'll leave the smaller things on, but if I'm using something heavy, I pay attention and switch off other big loads when needed. If you're thinking about getting one, I actually found a pretty good price on this. I'll leave the link in the description below so you can check it out for yourself. For longer outages, the propane setup has been excellent. Running it from a larger propane tank makes the experience much more convenient than constantly dealing with small fuel containers. I've had it run for long stretches without issue, including extended daytime use and shutting it down at night when power wasn't needed. For me, that makes it feel practical, not just powerful. Noise is something you should be realistic about. This is a large open-frame generator, so yes, it is loud. I wouldn't call it shocking, because big generators with large engines are going to make noise, but you're not going to forget it's running. If you're coming from a smaller generator or an inverter-style unit, this will sound much more industrial. That said, compared to older diesel generators, it can actually feel more tolerable. Still, placement matters. I'd keep it away from living areas, follow safe ventilation practices, and be mindful of neighbors. Another thing worth mentioning is the CO sensor. I understand why it exists, and safety matters, but on generators in general, these sensors can sometimes be sensitive depending on wind direction and exhaust flow. but it's something I keep in mind when positioning the unit. You do not want exhaust blowing back toward the generator, and you definitely don't want to run any generator inside a garage, house, or enclosed space. Assembly was mostly easy, but again, the weight is the challenge. Lay down cardboard or a blanket so you don't scratch it while working on it. Have oil ready. Have the right sockets or wrenches ready. And after setup, test it before you actually need it. Don't wait until a storm is already overhead or the power is already out. One small issue I ran into was with the idle control. On mine, the switch did not seem to do what it was supposed to at first, and it took some adjustment to get it working correctly. Personally, I don't really use the idle control when connected to the house anyway. With modern appliances and electronics, I prefer steady generator speed, rather than having it drop idle and then surge back up when it senses a load. But I still think something like that should be checked properly before leaving the factory. The manual was generally helpful, though I did notice one simple thing. When starting on gasoline, it's easy to forget the fuel valve if you're following steps quickly. That can lead to a few anxious minutes where the generator cranks but doesn't start. So if you're testing it on gas, check the valve before assuming something is wrong. Maintenance is another area where I'd be proactive. During break-in, changing the oil early is a good idea. Seeing some metallic particles in the first oil change is not surprising with a new engine, and doing another oil change after a few more hours gives peace of mind. I also like the idea of using a magnetic oil drain plug to catch any fine metal over time. It's a small thing, but with a machine this important, I want it to last. As far as portability goes, the wheels and handles help, but portable is relative here. You can move it around, but it's still a very heavy generator. I would not want to be dragging it long distances every time the power goes out. Ideally, you want a planned storage spot and a planned operating spot, so you're not improvising in bad weather. Overall, I've been very happy with this DuroMax generator. It gives me the confidence that when the power goes out, I'm not scrambling with extension cords and tiny generators just to keep the basics alive. It starts well, runs smoothly on propane, handles serious household loads, and feels well built for the money. It's not perfect. It's heavy, it's loud, setup takes some planning, and I'd recommend testing everything immediately after assembly. But those feel like reasonable trade-offs for the amount of backup power it provides. If you want something quiet and lightweight, this is probably not the right direction. But if you want a strong home backup generator that can keep a household functioning through outages, this one makes a lot of sense. If you have any questions about this product, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.